For years, everyone in the neighborhood knew one thing. If Karen wanted something, Karen got it. She wasn't technically the president of the HOA, but she acted like she owned the entire subdivision. She walked around with a clipboard, inserted herself into every dispute, and loved reminding people about community standards whenever it benefited her. Most residents avoided conflict because arguing with her usually meant weeks of passive-aggressive emails, anonymous complaints, or surprise violation notices taped to their doors. But Karen's biggest abuse of power centered around a narrow paved access lane running behind several homes near the east entrance of the neighborhood. Years earlier, construction crews had used it as a temporary service road. Once construction ended, the lane was supposed to remain closed because part of it crossed private property belonging to one specific corner lot. Officially, residents were never supposed to use it as a public shortcut. Karen ignored that entirely. Every weekday morning, she would unlock the barricade herself and wave cars through like she was directing traffic for the city. Parents rushing to school drop-offs loved it because it shaved almost 7 minutes off their commute. Soon delivery drivers, landscapers, and even strangers from outside the neighborhood began using the shortcut too. Tire tracks appeared across the grass bordering the property. Trash started collecting near the path. Cars sped through at dangerous speeds while children played nearby. The homeowners most affected complained constantly. One elderly couple said drivers were cutting so close to their mailbox that they feared checking their mail. A young family reported near misses involving their kids riding bikes. Another resident showed Karen's security footage of people using the lane late at night as a turnaround spot. Karen dismissed every concern with the same polished HOA language. It benefits the community overall. We have to be flexible. Traffic flow improvements are important. Whenever someone pushed harder, Karen subtly reminded them she chaired the neighborhood compliance committee. Suddenly, those same residents would start receiving notices about weeds, trash bins, or holiday decorations staying up too long. People learned quickly that challenging Karen came with consequences. What frustrated residents most was how confidently she acted as though the shortcut belonged to everyone. She spoke about it at HOA meetings like it was an established neighborhood feature, carefully avoiding the fact that part of the road crossed private land. Many newer residents assumed the HOA legally controlled it because Karen repeated the claim so often. The new homeowner arrived quietly. No dramatic introductions. No immediate complaints. Just a calm, observant man in his 40s who spent his first few weeks measuring parts of the property, reviewing paperwork, and speaking politely with nearby neighbors. Karen barely paid attention at first. She assumed this owner would fold like the last one eventually had. What she didn't realize was that this new neighbor wasn't intimidated by HOA politics at all. And unlike everyone before him, he wasn't planning to argue with Karen. He was planning to end the problem permanently. The neighborhood barely noticed the changes at first. A few residents saw contractors taking measurements near the old shortcut entrance. Others noticed stacks of metal posts and boxed materials sitting neatly along the side yard of the new homeowner's property. Most assumed he was adding landscaping or upgrading the fence line. Karen certainly didn't think much of it. She continued unlocking the shortcut every morning like she had for years, waving SUVs through with her coffee cup in hand while acting like unofficial mayor of the subdivision. But behind the scenes, the new homeowner had spent weeks preparing carefully. Instead of confronting Karen publicly, he went straight to the source: paperwork. He hired a surveyor to confirm the exact property boundaries. He pulled city records showing the construction access lane had never been converted into a public easement. He reviewed every page of the HOA bylaws and discovered something Karen had conveniently ignored for years. The HOA had absolutely no authority over that section of land. Then he filed the proper permits. No arguments. No social media drama. No angry HOA speeches. Just quiet preparation. The installation started early on a Thursday morning. Residents leaving for work slowed their cars as they passed the property. Workers in reflective vests were digging deep post foundations directly across the entrance of the shortcut. By noon, tall black steel panels had been lifted into place. By evening, a sleek electronic gate stood exactly where Karen usually removed the barricade every morning. At the center hung a simple metal sign. Private access closed. No trespassing. The timing was perfect. Karen discovered it the next morning during peak school traffic. Like always, she drove toward the shortcut expecting to perform her daily routine. Several cars followed closely behind her, assuming she would open the path as usual. But when she rounded the corner, she froze. The gate was locked solid. At first, she just stared at it in disbelief. Witnesses later said she sat in her SUV for nearly 30 seconds without moving, as if her brain simply refused to process what she was seeing. Then came the horn honking from impatient parents trapped behind her. Karen jumped out of her vehicle and marched toward the gate, yanking it violently as if brute force alone might reopen the road. It didn't budge. That's when the new homeowner stepped outside. Calm, relaxed, coffee mug in hand. According to several neighbors watching from their porches, Karen immediately exploded. "You can't do this!" she shouted across the driveway. The homeowner didn't raise his voice once. "Yes, actually, I can." Karen demanded the gate be opened for community access. The homeowner simply pointed to the property survey markers now clearly visible along the fence line. Then he calmly explained that unauthorized vehicles had been trespassing on private property for years, and the access was permanently closed. Meanwhile, traffic behind Karen became a complete disaster. Cars started backing up into the main road. Frustrated parents attempted awkward three-point turns, while other residents slowed down just to watch the confrontation unfold. Some people even stepped outside with phones, sensing they were witnessing a moment the neighborhood would talk about for years. It was the realization spreading across the crowd that Karen had finally met someone she couldn't intimidate. For the first time in years, her authority meant absolutely nothing. And the locked gate standing behind her proved it. Karen refused to accept defeat. By the end of the same morning, she had already started calling other HOA board members, insisting the new homeowner had illegally blocked a shared community roadway. She framed herself as the victim, claiming residents were being denied access because of one selfish neighbor. Within hours, neighborhood Facebook groups exploded with arguments. Some parents complained about losing the shortcut, while others quietly admitted they were relieved the constant traffic might finally stop. But Karen wasn't interested in compromise. She wanted control back. That weekend, she organized an emergency HOA meeting in the clubhouse. Residents packed the room, partly because of the controversy and partly because everyone knew Karen was furious. People whispered as she stood at the front, holding a thick folder of papers, dramatically explaining how the gate was damaging neighborhood harmony and creating unnecessary hardship for families. Then she made her biggest mistake. She publicly threatened the homeowner with HOA fines and possible legal action. The room fell silent when the homeowner calmly stood up from the back row. Unlike Karen, he didn't bring emotional speeches. He brought evidence. First came the certified property survey showing the shortcut sat entirely on his legally owned land. Then came copies of city zoning records confirming the lane had never been designated for public access. After that, he handed out printed sections of the HOA bylaws proving the association had no jurisdiction over privately owned access roads unless easements existed, which they didn't. Karen's confidence started cracking immediately. But the real damage came next. The homeowner revealed security footage collected from cameras installed shortly after he moved in. Multiple clips showed Karen personally removing old barricades, directing traffic through the property, and even instructing delivery trucks to use the shortcut despite posted warning signs from the previous owner. Murmurs spread across the room. Then the homeowner placed one final document on the table. A letter from his attorney warning that continued unauthorized access to the property could expose both Karen and the HOA to liability issues, especially if injuries or accidents occurred on the land. That changed everything. The HOA's own attorney, who had remained mostly quiet during the meeting, finally spoke up. After reviewing the documents, he admitted the homeowner was completely within his legal rights to install and lock the gate. Worse, he warned the board that attempting to force access could trigger an expensive lawsuit the HOA would almost certainly lose. Karen looked stunned. For years, she had controlled arguments through intimidation, half-truths, and sheer persistence. But none of that worked against documented facts. Every attempt she made to interrupt only seemed to make the situation worse. Residents who had stayed silent for years finally started speaking openly about her behavior. Selective rule enforcement, retaliatory violation notices, and constant abuse of authority. By the end of the meeting, the mood of the neighborhood had completely shifted. Karen's emergency meeting had accidentally become a public reckoning. Within a month, she was removed from the compliance committee after multiple residents filed formal complaints against her conduct. The HOA quietly dropped all threats regarding the gate. New no trespassing signs were installed near the former shortcut entrance, and traffic through the area stopped permanently. Ironically, once the shortcut disappeared, many residents admitted the neighborhood actually became quieter, safer, and less stressful. And every morning after that, Karen still had to sit in the same long line of traffic as everyone else, staring at the locked black gate that had ended her reign with a single click.